Good morning. Welcome back to Passionate World Talk Radio Network, a wholly owned subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Educate, enlighten, entertain, and let's not forget mindfulness. And mindfulness is becoming a large part of our podcast. Special report, scam damnation, and right now, lest we forget historical. And today, our episode is based on an article written by Scott Horsley, Horsley, and it was heard this morning on NPR, in their morning edition. So what's all the fuss? Why is everybody jumping up? Well, it seems like the first person to try this with the IRS was former President Nixon, later dubbed in history as Tricky Dick. And he came up with his scheme. But let me start at the beginning so you understand the process of his thinking and our current administration's thinking. So why do you go after the IRS? Our former Tricky Dick decided that he would utilize tax data to trace immigrants who did not have legal status, is similar and runs parallel to the current administration's threat to Harvard University tax exemption. Our current administration has been trying to use the IRS for its own nefarious purposes in ways that may seem like he's making it up as it goes along. However, no, he is modeling his behavior on things that Tricky Dick, or then former President Nixon, considered was threatening the tax exemptions of universities, says Joseph Thorndike, director of the Tax History Project at Tax Analysts. Quote, and that sounds very familiar if you're reading the paper these days, end of quote. Nixon was really angry at the universities for not cracking down and all the universities and the colleges about the Vietnam protests that were going on during his administration. She just sounds familiar. The president is now saying about the Ivy League schools and Harvard not doing more to silence protests against the war in Gaza. And an administration crackdown on anti-Semitism on college campuses. The current administration wrote in a social media post, quote, we are going to be taking away Harvard's tax-exempt status. It's what they deserve. Really? Sounds more like comment, opinion. Revenge. I don't like you. You're not doing what I'm saying. I'm stamping my foot on the floor like a spoiled little brat. And if I don't get what I want, I'm going to take my big stick and I'm going to crack it over your head. Also, the president is drawing on Nixon's old playbook, despite the laws that were put into place after Watergate to prevent that kind of meddling by the White House. The Oval recordings from 1971 reveal how Nixon tried to install a hand-picked enforcer, a bully, a mole, my words again, at the IRS to do his political bidding. Comment, is that like telling the voters in midterm elections down in Florida, you better vote the way I want you to vote or else? Well, seems that way to me too. Nixon told aides, I want to be sure he's the ruthless son of a bitch, that he will do what he's told, that every income tax return I want to see, I see. Then I'll go after our enemies and not go after our friends. It is simple as that. Common opinion. Is that like the current President not helping the blue states because they're not Republicans? Is that like denying them disaster relief after the horrific storms, hurricanes, tornadoes that have ripped through their states, or going after the political candidates themselves and threatening to either send them to El Salvador or shoot them on trumped up charges of treason? Just a thought. Nixon tried very hard to misuse the IRS, Thorndike says. Congress certainly saw that as a danger afterwards. If the president is developing an enemies list, and we bring it into the future, 21st century, 2025, opinion comment, that's exactly what our current administration is doing. And they're developing an enemy list and sending them to the IRS. They are, both Nixon and the present administration, I want you to audit these people I don't like. Now that's worrisome. And so Congress was very interested in taking steps to prevent that. After Nixon left office, Congress passed laws to protect the IRS and us, the taxpayers, from political interference from the White House. And now our present administration is testing them. For example, Congress passed a law to strictly limit who can access information that taxpayers voluntarily provide to the IRS. But last month, the tax collection agency struck a deal to share some of that taxpayer data with immigration officials to help find and deport people who are in the country illegally. Comment, opinion, is that going to also be used against all the white South Africans that have been offered America as a sanctuary country for them to come to? Just asking. Immigration advocates are seeking a court order to block the IRS from sharing data with other government agencies. When NPR inquired about the data sharing agreement, a Treasury Department spokesperson defended the initiative as, quote, breaking down data silos. But critics say those silos were put there for a reason after Tricky Dick. If the IRS is now forced to share data with people who it's not supposed to, that increases the risk of political targeting. Comment, opinion. Well, the present administration is already doing that. Blue, shot, exiled, sent to El Salvador. Red, da 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 da. Yes, Mike Creature, Deputy Director of the Tax Law Center at New York University, said, if the IRS is now forced to share data with people who it's not supposed to, that increases the risk of political targeting. An acting commissioner of the IRS resigned shortly afterward. The data sharing agreement was reached. The president is now on his fourth acting commissioner since taking office less than 4 months ago. Comment, opinion, that's one person a month. His nominee for the permanent job, former Rep. Billy Long, Republican, Missouri, is still waiting on confirmation hearing. Congress has also tried to prevent a rerun of Nixon's enemies list by prohibiting the president and people around him from requesting or interfering with an IRS investigation. Preacher says, I used to work at the IRS. If you're an IRS person and you're on the receiving end of an improper request from a political official to use the IRS as a weapon, you're supposed to go to the Inspector General and report that right away. Opinion, comment, yeah, sure. That hasn't stopped the current administration from insisting the IRS should strip Harvard and other nonprofit groups of their tax-exempt status. I got a question. Does that also mean that if the Vatican does not go along with the current president's agenda, that all the churches, all the religious places in the US of A will be stripped of their non-exempt status as well. As Cromwell and Henry VIII saw it, that's where all the money is. Losing a tax break would be a severe blow to Harvard, which depends on tax-free gifts and its tax-free endowment from nearly half of its annual budget. And the current president said, I think Harvard is a disgrace. Tax-exempt status, I mean, that's a privilege. That's really a privilege, and it's been abused. Comment, opinion. Abuse, privilege, accepting a gift from the Arabs, from Qatar, a Boeing 747 decked out in gold. That's a privilege. And that's not an abuse? Really? While Nixon's plans for the IRS were secretly recorded in the Oval Office, our current administration avails his on social media and live television. Thorndike says, quote, our president just says it right out loud, talking about politicizing the agency quite visibly. I guess I say that's a choice. I don't think it's a good choice for the president. Our current administration told reporters last month that he's not personally involved in the decision over revoking Harvard's tax exemption. Comment, really? Then why is it being executed without him getting involved? After all, the buck stops with our current president. But leading Democrat senators have called for an investigation of the president's actions by the Inspector General who oversees the IRS. Of course, common opinion, if they get rid of the IRS altogether, then what? At the same time, the administration is calling for the IRS to investigate individual targets. It's also severely limiting the agency's ability to go after wealthy tax cheats more generally. Comment, opinion. Of course, he's privileged. They're privileged. They're not really Americans. They're super Americans because they have, ta-da, the money. According to an Inspector General's report, the administration has cut more than 11,000 jobs at the IRS, including nearly a third of the tax auditors. And more downsizing is expected in the months to come as part of a widespread effort to shrink the federal government. That's likely to hurt the federal budget since every dollar spent on tax enforcement more than pays for itself in increased tax collections. A functioning and effective IRS is in all of our interests, Thorndike says, and just starving the agency of staff, that really blows back immediately on taxpayers. Which begs the question, is the current sitting president a reincarnation of Richard Nixon? Can it already be happening? Stay tuned. Thank you very much for listening to Lest We Forget Historical. And this program is brought to you by two companies. One, Ruby, rubi.ai. Go and check out the website, aiwithlillian.com. It'll take you over to ruby.ai. Look at the list of testimonials. Go through the demo and then sign up for a monthly subscription. AI is here to stay, folks. It's not going to go away. It's going to be more improved. It's going to become sophisticated, and it'll become more involved in our everyday life, whether it's personal, business, and yes, religion. So wake up and smell what's left of the coffee grinds. Also, it's brought to you by Conscious Research Solution, AI-assisted research. Please check out the website at passionworldtalkradio.com/research made simple blog. It will provide all the reasons why research has always been a hassle and provide solutions to make it hassle-free. And while you're there, sign up for a 15-minute consult and talk to one of our specialists. And while you're over there, please go over to passionatworldtalkradio.com/donation to keep programs like Lest We Forget Historical, Chatting with Betsy, Dan Riley's sports and political commentaries on the air. passionatworldtalkradio.com/donation. Please, for the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Thank you very much for listening, and have an awesome day.